What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video from our new channel, The Studio Business. Now, last video, I alluded that we were putting together a community for studio owners, and we are still working on that behind the scenes here, and we are hoping to release that next month. But in preparation for that, I wanted to do something a little different today, and so the video today is going to be a little bit of a compilation of a couple of interviews I've done recently with other studio owners, talking through their experience starting a studio, what they did well, what they didn't, what they would have done differently, and passing a lot of information on to you guys that I hope you will find valuable. So without further ado, let's hop into these interviews.
We were willing to eat the cost of the rent of the studio just to do our own shows.
I said, all right, it's the time. Like, people are ready. So let's open a space now and take our experience of production and bring it to the masses.
So for me to do YouTube, I'm kind of like, well, man, it would be great to also have a space that can present this while I also have a space that can present that. And that's kind of why we have like this whole 3 segments of different sceneries and different vibes.
If they wanted to do it rough and tough, they'd buy a Rodecaster and they'd do it in their house. But then the people who really want this service and your service in Chicago is ultimately they want it to appear bigger than they are. They want to kind of like skip the learning phase and go straight to delivery phase.
100% of my clientele these days is a direct result of my podcast.
What do I begin with this? So my inspiration for video podcast, like I said, I was podcasting audio.
Yeah.
Ever since I was like, honestly, I say 16, but I think a little bit earlier because I was experimenting with stuff, and video wasn't included. So I knew from a perspective of podcasting that content was king. Like what you were talking about and really kind of the personalities is what drove the content.
Yeah.
When it came to finally implementing it into a business perspective, kind of at Sticky Paws, we had the idea of like, first of all, we're here. We were willing to eat the cost of the rent of the studio just to do our own show. So if that meant we make no revenue in the first year and all we do is pay rent and, and do the shows we want, we've succeeded. So we really set the bar, what I would say, really low. Yeah. So we actually weren't coming from a perspective starting Sticky Paws that we had to make $1. Yeah. However, John, my business partner, has a huge network of people who, have every parts of the entertainment, whether they're sports reporters or whether they're influencers, and they all have money, right? Or some sort of business acumen or model and stuff. So based off of what John experienced at the previous studio, he knew that, that is a price point. And that price point was $350 to $500 an episode. Mm-hmm. And he knew that, in order to get networked into these people, he was going to offer a premium service, aka the studio time, me, the engineer, and like the workflow that I built to his friends for a cheaper price, $150 an episode, which is super low. Yeah. But it was something. So, okay, we get $150 an episode. That's what, $600 from one client. And maybe we had 2 at the time. Like he had 2 friends that we got in. So it was like, okay, we're paying half our rent. That's more than enough. John was willing to foot the bill for just that to make it happen. But then something kind of just cascaded where, those people came in, our shows were being released, and people were like, what's that? What's going on? Or what are you doing? Like, and it's like, oh, I want that. And it got to a point where like, people are asking us to produce their shows. So this must be valuable. So like we started to evaluate like, okay, what's the price point per episode? And we kind of settled on like $250 an episode, which is more than $150, but not so high where it's like sticker shock. Sure. And I think we just kind of settled around $250 an episode. And it wasn't until recently we actually went to a membership model for an all-inclusive turnkey experience. Yeah, yeah. But we kind of evolved that based off of our own requirements. Like as a podcaster, as like in this network, Podcast Junkies Network, Action Junkies, Fitness Junkies, Vegas, all these shows. Like what does that what do we want out of a podcast? So let's offer that as a service, and let's kind of like really pay attention to how much time we're spending on each part of the process. And just if it takes more time, let's charge more money. Yeah. And then we didn't offer services we weren't prepared for in the beginning. We did exactly what I was capable of doing. I'm one man doing everything at the time. So if I didn't have time to cut clips or if I didn't have time to release everything, we just didn't do it. We didn't offer the service.
I would say probably 5 to 7 years ago, I was watching some kind of podcasts on YouTube start popping up, and I immediately was like, this is huge, right? I understand marketing. This is all I do with my life is marketing. And looking at it, I was like, okay, this is such an amazing tool. I actually went out about 7 years ago and filmed 15 episodes for my podcast, where I was interviewing business owners. We brought all of the production gear, and I never released a single episode of that, which I felt bad because I wasted all these people's time. But I didn't do it because I just had so much, like, I guess, self-doubt about this, and I didn't love the way it looked, and I was so particular with, like, because we're a production company.
Sure.
And so back then is like, I had the idea. I was like, I want to open up a studio for this.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much value behind podcasting, especially with the video component.
Mm-hmm.
But with my past experience of trying to sell something early on, I knew I had to wait. So I waited for years. You and I talked about it in Chicago when I was there, I think 3 years ago, before you opened yours. And that was cool. And then I kind of sat on the idea a little bit longer. I was actually in the process of building a different company before I decided to open up the studio. And then I spent 6 months developing software for that company. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to build this. I hate it. And I had more and more clients start asking me, hey, can like Canonical Media come out and film podcasts for us? And I was like, yes, but you're not going to like the price tag, because for me to bring my team out there, it's going to be so expensive. And for what it is, yes, there's a lot of value, but I don't think it should cost too much money.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I had 2 or 3 of my like good clients like ask me about doing it, I was like, and I was over the other company I was trying to build. I said, all right, it's the time. Like, people are ready. They already understand.
Yeah.
So let's open a space now and take our experience of production and bring it to the masses.
I was essentially raised in Las Vegas. I'm from Vegas.
Yeah.
And I came here in the pandemic, essentially, and started a digital marketing company. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know this area. Practically never been here. I don't know. I mean, oil and gas is this entire industry here, and I've never stepped foot in an oil field. I have no idea still to this day.
Yeah.
But I've got, 20 plus years in creative and digital. So I was like, all right, I'll just start my own thing. I just had to figure out what businesses wanted here.
Sure.
So yes, technically the podcast studio didn't really, honestly, it's only been about maybe 6 months. But I've been doing, helping people with social media. Social media advertising is sort of my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, long story short, after realizing that small businesses here in this area is so much smaller than what I'm used to, we're going to kind of live and die by that Instagram account. And I was like, oh, there's so much more in digital that I could potentially help with. So we created Best of Midland, Texas as a local business directory and events calendar. So, because we love to support local and small business, sometime last year, I was just kind of in this mindset of getting clients that are like, I want to do more video primarily for social media, but I was like, all right, I need a bigger space, even for our own studio. But I was like, when we looked at a bigger space, I was like, oh, why don't we just turn it into a podcast studio? And that's sort of when I think I came across your content, going like, all right, well, this is nothing like this is in Midland, but I mean, I haven't been back to Vegas in 3 years, and I know of 12 studios myself. Right. Yeah. So I was like, it's coming. Right. Yeah. And seeing yours, I was like, yeah, but he's in Chicago. Makes sense. Right. It's a major
big enough city,
metropolitan. But I was like, what if we just do it now? And that was kind of the thing. It was like, become first to market here. And sort of just ride this wave. And it helps that we have a podcast.
You would assume majority comes from that videography, photographer field, or that whole area. Mm-hmm. For me, it was more so like, I actually do music in the side, right? And I'm a musician. So it's kind of like, I wanted to have my own in-house. That was kind of my dream from the get-go. Yeah. When I first started doing music, I'm like, dang, I want my own camera, guys. Or dang, I want my own space. Because I think of creativity as more than just seeing something that's already created. You kind of want to build on more, or maybe kind of vision it a little different. So for me, it was more so like, if I was to have this space here or have something here, what else could I build on it? Like, if I wanted to do a setup where maybe I can have like a roller coaster ride or this, that's kind of where, my idea was, I seen an opportunity where I wanted to showcase that with the space I have.
Mm-hmm.
Also seeing what's going on now with the new era of podcasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
We also see that podcasting is a thing, but not only that, I also do YouTube on the side as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to do YouTube, I'm kind of like, well, man, it would be great to also have a space that can
Mm-hmm.
present this while I also have a space that can present that. And that's kind of why we have like this whole 3 segments of different sceneries and different vibes. So
Yeah.
when you first walk in the studio, as you know, you have your whole entire podcast set up.
Yeah.
Just like your traditional podcast setup, come in there, record,
Yeah.
and you're all set. But then when you go to the back, you have more of like a visionary, oh man, I can do
Yeah.
photo shoots here, videography, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an upstairs where it's more like a trading floor I'm building, like a
Mhm.
workshop trading floor building. So it's more like a area where I can bring in students and they can come in and I can teach them how to do certain things and so
I like
forth.
that. I
So
like that.
it's kind of like me all in one. It's kind of like I'm literally, how can I put it? It's like literally everything that I envision all in one facility, you know? And that's kind of where I'm at right now with that.
Wanted to take a quick break from the video here. If you're enjoying the content you're seeing, there's a whole lot more of it getting put together behind the scenes for this upcoming group that we are putting together called The Studio Business. And if you are interested in pursuing this, this is the best way to do it. So go ahead and click the link down in the description below. There's going to take you to a waitlist page. Drop your information in there, and then when this group goes live, you will get notified first and be asked to join should you want to. We hope to see you there.
I think a lot of people starting out in this space, they value themselves way too low. They don't call their service a premium. And that's what people want from this industry.
Mhm.
It's like if they wanted to do it rough and tough, they'd buy a Rodecaster and they'd do it in their house, and they would maybe use their webcam as a camera, use platforms like Riverside and like all these or StreamYard,
Yeah.
which is admirable. Like if
Sure.
that's what you want to do, like that's what a podcaster wants initially.
Mhm.
But then the people who really want this service and your service in Chicago is ultimately they want it to appear bigger than they are. They want to kind of like skip the learning phase
Yeah.
and go straight to delivery phase.
I agree.
So when providing, when costing our studio, we notice that the lower we price ourselves, the lower quality client we get. And yeah, the market share is bigger, but then the people who are paying you they don't appreciate all the little nuances you put into it.
Yeah.
And 2, they have no long-term plan. Like they're losing money by paying you money,
Mhm.
right? You want somebody who, at the $250 price point or our one-off price $275 price point, like you want them to feel the hurt so that they're motivated to make it something bigger than just a fun hobby.
Yeah.
And that's really where we're going to. So we're like B2B primarily, where we want to find business owners, whether the business is being an influencer, which is just create content at, every day,
Mhm.
or you're a coffee shop, or, you're a guy who sells solar. And it really took, and honestly, and I don't think that has been solved. It's like, we really don't know how to approach a client for this kind of service, because
Yeah.
the people who want it find us. They look up Podcast Studio on Google. So if you have a website, having SEO dialed in is great. Maybe you run Google search term ads. That's great too.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we have to do a lot of educating on how podcasting is beneficial for a business or for a person.
Let's be real. Like, you're not Joe Rogan, right? You didn't have this baked in audience. You weren't a stand-up
Yeah.
comedian. So is your podcast going to crush on day one? No. But, I've got a client where I'm giving them 150 clips in 10 episodes, right?
Yep.
And I'm like,
Exactly. Look at that.
that will crush everyone else here in town, simply from an output perspective.
Yeah.
While your podcast itself on YouTube, and again, I'm bullish on YouTube. Do I post to Spotify and Apple? Yes. I don't care. Like, the analytics
Yeah.
are garbage. I'm a YouTube guy first. That's you got to play the long game here, right? And honestly, when people come in here, and they've got a podcast idea, I try to talk them out of it. Honestly, like, I do everything I can to talk them out of it, to fully understand. Like, no, I'm in it. I get it. It's a financial commitment, but even more so, it's a time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an idea where this is hopefully going to help my business, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going like, everybody thinks they're hilarious. They're like, hey, I've got a podcast. We're funny. We love the Transformers. And I'm going like, listen, Yeah, unless Hasbro is going to be a sponsor, like this is not. I mean, and you're independently wealthy or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
how long do you think this is going to last? Right? Like, you've got to play the long game here. Like,
Yeah.
I created a podcast called The Best of Midland, Texas. I didn't expect to be doing BetterHelp ads on this thing anytime soon. Right? Like, it wouldn't make sense if we had 1 million subs when there's 150,000 people in the city. Right?
Yeah.
I pigeonholed myself from the get-go. But from the beginning, it was like, well, if I'm going to become an expert at this, I have to do it. And also, every single person that I bring in I'm building relationships. I'm not a transactional guy, right? Like 100% of my clientele these days is a direct result of my podcast that I have. And it's not like I get people in and then, we're and record and I'm shuffling them off and I'm trying to sell them a podcast. That's not it at all. I'm not a timeshare person, right? It's like, cool, thanks for coming in. That was an amazing story. See you around. We're going to run into each other all the time because this city's so small.
First, we started off with just the everyday traditional podcasters. I'm just starting off. Now we're very slowly getting more professional business into the studio, right? But I'm trying to think. It's not as fast, right?
Yeah.
But it's slow. So we do get more. I would definitely say it's probably 80, maybe 85 more retail than business. But we definitely want to start working more on the business side just because we know what that can do and so forth. But for sure right now, retail for sure.
What is your kind of like pitch for people? Because we get a wide range of people in here, and we do tours too, and it's like you almost have to like kind of explain what this is to people and how to use it, because I think podcasting is a tough industry. Like I don't think today I want to start a podcast, I go in, film this, like it's a tough way to you're going to be spending a lot of money before you start seeing any of that back. So how do you kind of navigate that conversation with people, and how do you kind of illustrate the value to people?
So that kind of really goes back to when we were doing our tours. We really wanted to sit them down and kind of just understand their vision and their end goal of what they really wanted. But ideally, we're still trying to figure that out because, like you said, it's not just like I can go to Walmart and just buy, or I can go to the music store and buy headphones. You know exactly what it's going to do, right? With this type of product, really a service, because it's kind of like we're offering a service and product, you know, and offering that, it requires more attention, and it's kind of like, well, look, what we in theory, what we want to do is just visually have an idea of where they could, I don't know, come into the platform or not really platform, but just visually see it and they can just understand it. That's kind of what we're trying to push, but we're still trying to figure out what is it, because it can be something simple. It can be, well, maybe should we put off 4 cameras and take a photo of that while we have the stage and the person here sitting here, maybe modeling. And it's kind of tough, really, because like I said, it just comes down to the client. It's almost like they have to know something about this product or service before, rather than they're just completely newbie or new or whatever.
So I definitely knew what I didn't like, and I knew what I didn't want to do, right? Doing videos for 17 years and taking crappy office spaces and making it look good was definitely like a value add of like, okay, I know what's going to look good on camera. And it's funny, I actually brought an interior designer into the studio when there was nothing in here. And I was like, look, I'm willing to pay. Like, I got money to put into this. Not a ton. Like, I'm not rich, but I'm willing to invest in this because I see the potential. And, she started talking. And I was like, I hate everything you're saying. I hate every idea you have. I was like, you don't get it. Like, because interior designers think about when you walk into the room. I think about what shows up on camera. I want when you walk in, I do want our set to be pleasing to the eye, definitely.
Yeah.
But I care more about the frame than I care about what the room looks like. And so that was something where I was like, oh, my wife's done a great job developing our house and, making it look really pretty. I love the way our house is looking. I have some input on it. I veto a lot of things that maybe are too weird. And I love the way that our home looks. And so I was like, let me bring my wife on and get her opinion. And then she'd throw out her ideas and I'd be like, nope, like that is not cool. It was just me. I was just like, okay, what do I want? What is going to look pretty? And I think that's honestly, like, I mean, obviously, if you don't understand the technical side of the company, I would say that set design is the hardest part when it comes to building your podcast studio, because it needs to be something aesthetically pleasing. It needs to be something that people are going to want to use, something that's somewhat customizable and has a look. And so I think it's one of the hardest parts of the business for sure.
It was strategic in a way of having at least 2 different feeling layouts, right? Like I personally started with the across the desk for my own podcast, right? But I'm in a weird space because ideally I would want a completely separate set that's only for our podcast and no one else uses it and it's branded for us, right? There's another square footage issue. And I thought, okay, well, you're gonna have the sort of like chair to next to chair one-on-one type of interview, and then what if we had a living room-esque type set? Or what I really love is that the Colin and Samir type of massive round table and kind of is flexible to that.
We just wanted multi-sets for a specific, right? Rather if you want to do a music video, or rather if you're a SoundCloud rapper, rather if you TV or whatever it is you do, right? We just wanted these sets specifically for that purpose. And that's pretty much how that whole idea came. So right now we're working on a rain room. I think we told you about that.
I know what you're doing. I know the direction.
So we're definitely working on a rain room, but it's going to be a little different than a usual rain room, right? Okay. So that's our next big project that we're working on in the back. In addition to that, we have the traditional sets, right? The cyclorama wall. We also have other themes that we will be able to change probably every 6 months or a year. Kind of really don't get the feel to kind of understand really, but that's ideally what we are leaning towards, right? We do plan on having that ready very soon. So once again, we can have the back going and that front going pretty much at the same time.
Okay.
And another thing that we really want to work on is the soundproofing, right? Because that's a big thing, because obviously podcasting requires quiet, right? I know y'all was saying earlier is the heat off. That's something we also do at the same time. You know? Right. So it's kind of like you definitely want to make sure you have that, but we also want to make sure we have full capacity as well, where of course the business is producing income and so forth. So we want to make sure that we can still rent the back out and we can still rent the front out at the same time. We just need to get that soundproofing situated. And that's our main thing.
Hope that you guys found that video impactful and helpful for you. If you're interested in seeing the full-length interviews, there are many more of them in the works, and they're going to be hosted exclusively in length on our community platform called The Studio Business. The waitlist is down below. If you'd like to click that link and get onboarded, you can do so now. But thank you for watching. Be sure to drop a comment. Let us know if it was helpful, if there's any other information that you'd like to hear from us moving forward, and we'll be sure to take that into consideration. So see you guys in the next video.